All right, here we are, the Mosaic of Broken Dreams. Really, where the Mosaic of Broken Dreams title came from. Well, and back in episode 2, we talked about the ancient city. And I was building a 4th gate to the city, after all. 4 gates to the city, hallelujah. And this was supposed to be the 4th gate to the city. And my sister came while I was making it. And it was going to be, and I started using these tiles, not just the carved tiles. There's the red and yellow path to the ancient city, the temple, but I was going to do it at sunset with a crescent moon, and I started putting in all this pretty stuff that came out of these broken Mexican tiles. And my sister came and visited me and said, "Oh, that's the most beautiful mosaic you've ever made." And somehow when she said that, I stopped dead in my tracks and I stopped working on it. And it was just like that. I stopped working on it because it just suddenly looked like, ew, it's like Walt Disney. It's like some terrible Mickey Mouse cliche. This isn't the ancient city. It's lost its sacred power. I've put in too many leaves and colors and magic stones. It's turning into some pagan, potpourri, some hippie Peter Max. I was like, ew, and I was going to destroy it. So I said, no, I'm not making this. I'm not making some bourgeois fantasy of Christmas, at the temple. This is like those people who go to church at Christmas and Easter only. Ooh. So I started to destroy it, and some of it broke off in hunks like this. And I was going to destroy it, and then my pastor started talking about Advent. And I started thinking about, Mary and Joseph, no room at the inn. And I started moving these, whole pieces of this mosaic broke off in chunks. Some of it still stuck down. The sky was never finished. And I thought, just throw it together again. But this time, no vacancy. And here I have the innkeeper with his no vacancy sign. And I thought, and here are Mary and Joseph. And these came late. They were supposed to be figures for Day of the Kings, little people. But they arrived late from Belgium. Even in my Trinity mosaic, there's some of these little guys, they're supposed to be in Day of the King's cakes. But here they are, the Virgin Mary and Joseph, and no vacancy, get out of here. And here are the animals. Go down and sleep in the barn. And this is, of course, the cathedral that's overrun with cars and trucks. And every time you visit a cathedral, you know what happens. There's a school bus full of kids running around the cathedral. Look at the art from 15. There's a painting from blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, there's sports cars and traffic. And then suddenly the Vegas gambling sites spring up. And the plants get covered with iron replicas of plants. And little beautiful faces come in. And here's Balthazar. And he's with King Herod up in the temple. He'll be up here saying, "Hey, did you hear? The Messiah is coming." "Oh, yeah? Tell me more, tell me more." And he's like, he's like, "I think I'm talking to the wrong guy." Meanwhile, Mary and Joseph are down in there, and the traffic is really bad, and lizards come out of the ground, and there's a tow truck that comes to tow their broken vehicle, and they're going to get fined, and there's no room at the inn, and there's nothing. And Caesar's Palace has hooked up a place right next to the cathedral. And, too much of everything. Christmas is too much of everything, and that's why there's no room, because we all have too much of everything. Way too much of everything. And so now my sister won't like this mosaic. Here, we'll put the cancer ribbon in. We'll put a broken, glass marijuana pipe, now legal. This is like the Vegas version of the cathedral. And there's no room at the inn here. Go sleep in the animal shelter. Go to the Humane Society and sleep with there are no cows, there are no sheep, there's just dogs there. Go sleep with the dogs in a dog pen. Have your baby in a dog pen, refugee baby. Have your refugee baby in a cage. Let it die in a cage with animals. Fence them in on the border. No vacancy. Get out of here. What are you thinking? Here comes the gangster who donates all the money to the church. And you can't even get in the cathedral at Christmas because it's crammed with so many people who don't even know who Jesus is anymore. So I created Advent. By next Advent, I promise, where do ideas come from? Here's where they came from. What's left over when Christmas comes and goes, now it's gone, and that's what's left. And I'll have a real picture of Advent. But we know what comes after Advent. What does King Herod do? The part of Christmas story they never tell. There's lots of parts they never tell. The old guys used to tell them, but they would tell him like the circumcision of Jesus on day 3, or really it's the slaughter of the innocents by King Herod when Jesus is on the lamb after he's born. All those stories, the adult part of the Bible. I want, now I've got the adult part, the school bus, the tow truck, again, modern sacred life jammed with traffic and road signs and so much stuff. Too much stuff. All right. Go inside. Christmas here at the Mosaic of Broken Dreams. My dear wife Susan and I, we finally learned it in time to play for the Christmas pageant. On Christmas Eve, we whipped out those recorders and I thought about the music of restraint and what they wanted at the church. We played it with a harpsichord. John's here being in a harpsichord, after all, is just a machine that imitates a lute. So it was a keyboard. It was just, you want to turn your keyboard to lute setting. It's little pluck strings, and it just does those ornaments. The ornaments that drag behind you like a lace train. It's that, and I realized, this is music for people that have all been traumatized. In the 1500s, 1600s, warfare, famine. Many people have written books about how we live in the least violent time of all. Children are freaked out if they see an animal, if they see a chicken slaughtered. It used to be for dinner, you'd slaughter a lamb. That was something everyone knew. Slaughter of the lamb wasn't an odd thing. That's what the crook is for. You're pulling that crook stick. When the lambs see the stick with the hook, they know it's dinner time up at the house. That's not a protecting staff. That's dinner. Why to protect every lamb? And people lived in this world, and then violence was just everywhere. Warfare, famine, and children had seen crucifixions, and so they went to church with the equivalent of PTSD for everybody, and they needed music that would bring them back to Jesus. In that, the Prince of Peace. The Prince of Peace wasn't a metaphor for a psychological state. It was like, please, no more blood in the streets, no more religious warfare. And as it got worse and worse, it was already bad in 1500, and then the Reformation, and everybody thought the Lutherans would win, and the Catholics, and then the Muslim invasions. There were just so many different tribes of people, and they wanted art that solved like math problems. Now, when I was a jazz player, I always was trying to do the opposite. I was trying to play music to inflate emotion, to bring about emotion in people. Or gospel music, you try to bring down the Holy Ghost and have emotion, have people experience the heat of Jesus in their heart. But that's not what a lot of classical music is about. And that's why I could never play it. I mean, especially the Baroque. The Baroque is from the worst. It evolves from the worst of the religious wars, the most terrible times, Bach, it's a little better in Bach's time, but remember, Bach had 22 children, and when he was 60, 7 of them were left alive. And one of them had a good job as a court keyboardist, Carl. Carl had a good job with Frederick the Great. He was the backup key. But, already there was this fight of styles. There's this music of the backup band and the soloist, putting the melody out front. I mean, this kind of music, the melody gets buried in parts. And Bach, everything is a melody. It's this weaving, Colette called him the sublime sewing machine. And it just makes you feel that there must be order in the world. That, it's the greatest of the Protestant, declarations, this musical order in the world. They created a new kind of music, well, in response to, guerrilla warfare for the first time. They've won through, and then armies, just things and disruptions. It was the last time in the early 1600s and the 30 Years' War, that was the last time the population of Europe was declining. Not just the raid or something. No, the population really went down quite a bit, and it's been rising ever since at different rates. Diseases come and flatten the rates, but they've never seen declines in population since the end of the religious wars in the mid-1600s, And this new peace is very fragile, incredibly fragile. That's where, and the scientific revolution grows out of this. And I used to always hate playing with classical players, because here's what they do. When you're a soloist like me, playing melodies a lot, you play the melody with a jazz guy, and a jazz guy puts you in a pocket. It's like you're riding in a Cadillac. And he just, if you fall down, he picks you up. He puts out signposts. Hey Dave, here comes the bridge. Hey Dave, it's like you're cruising along. Whereas when you play this kind of classical music, you play the melody no matter what, and the accompanist, the harpsichordist or John, is like a lace train. It's like, okay, if you're a really good player, if you're a strong player, you play that melody no matter what. You just keep playing it, and the accompaniment makes it harder, not easier. The accompanist doesn't help you to play the song. It's the opposite. He puts decoration all over you. It puts you in a corset and high heels, and you have to do it backwards, and it's like, but you keep playing that melody. And of course, Greensleeves, one of the most famous of the Renaissance melodies, but any of these old melodies, Joy to the World, you can't, now I've seen people, I even myself took jazz solos. I chose Greensleeves because I used to play like Coltrane. Coltrane does, you can play these songs as jazz songs. They are great songs, but that's not what they were meant for. They were meant for that, And even in jazz, one guy told me, when you're a great player, you can add a lace train player to your band. Have a good rhythm section, and then add somebody, a guitar player or a pianist, who knows how every chord in the book, and just lays the chords on. And when you play that melody, all you have to do is know that that cat is making you look good. But it's harder to play, not easier. It gets harder. And that classical music, you have to play your part, even though everybody else is doing something, sometimes at odds. It's like I say, you have to pull your weight. If you're the violinist in a violin concerto, they don't put you in a pocket. They drag you down under if you're not the best player in the world. And but that music is also, like I say, it's about this restraint. And it's the great age when written music and organs, And by the way, I made a new table. Here's something new to the Mosaic of Broken Dreams. This is one of those. I made something unlike the mosaic out there I just talked about, where I was adding all of the no vacancy, Jesus and Mary, no room, and all the traffic jammed, the cathedrals jammed with cars and tour buses of children. But this is back to that. I just started out with a concept, and I said, I'm going to cut equilateral triangles. I set the tile saw at 60 degrees, and I kept cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. And in fact, one of the most interesting things is to see when I cut all these things, the picture of the tiles is better than the table. If I just wanted a photograph, I would have stopped there. But then I flipped them. I had to wrap them in plastic and flip them all over, clamped to a board to pour the cement behind them. But that, when they were flipped, I saw the clay backs. And all I saw was just all bare terracotta clay with these triangles. I saw the geometry of the thing without the pretty stuff. Now, I still made the table, but look at the photograph of the tiles. That was my favorite moment. As an artist, the moment when I saw the clay tiles, I wanted to pour the cement on this side and just make a terracotta table of just the triangles. The geometry, but of course, at least with triangles, you can rotate them. See, how to solve the geometry problem and at the same time make it beautiful and solve a color balance problem. But this doesn't make a statement. There's no vacancy. There's no tour bus of kids at the cathedral. This is just, no matter, of course, circles. You can't paint paintings with circles. Circles just look stupid on the wall. They always look like the mandala or the zodiac. Paintings on the wall have to be either rectangles this way or rectangles this way. They're either portraits, even if it's a tree. That's not a landscape. That's a portrait of a tree. If it's this way, even if it's a person laying down, that's not a person. That's a landscape of their body. It's like but circles, it's like I made Jesus in a circle, but that's because he's just this, like I say, he's the spiritual predator coming at you. And he comes out of the wall, and it's not a painting. It's not a good painting. It's a religious object. And God just comes running out of the wall with his golden horns. But we already talked about that. But those things, again, scare people. This doesn't scare people. People want the calmness of this. And yet, to the artist, to the geometer, underneath of it all is just a bunch of equilateral triangles. And the challenge of being a mathematician can you talk, if you have random equilateral triangles, can you fit them together? Well, yeah. Although there's a few cheaters. Eventually, it was so tedious. And what did it take to make this table? Oh, halfway through this table, I hated it. I was like, ugh. Just like that, I was going to destroy it, like that mosaic, like the pretty version of the ancient city, the pretty version. And I just said, no, people need calm, and we live in terribly troubled times. And there's times when the spirit has to come down, and times when you just stick to the geometry. And yet, Christmas, well, hey, the kings showed up late, and what did they tell Jesus? Get out of town. They're coming for you. They're coming to cut you down, even though you got the whole world in your hands.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the tiny little babies in his hands. He's got the tiny little babies in his hands. He's got the tiny little
Everybody's a 10-year-old with a Nerf gun at Christmas. So long from the Trinity Room, our good cameraman and marksman of the Nerf world, Mike Mahlstadt, John McGill, and yours truly, David Dennis, with our theory of everything. Where do ideas come?